From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.
Five-man rush. Ryan looking to throw, under pressure, and he's taken down! He's taken down Cam Jordan again! 4 sacks on the game for Cam Jordan, and your best player takes over when you need it the most.
The Falcons' block party was blown up by that Saints defense. 9 sacks Thursday night. Welcome into the Black and Gold Review Show. Former St. Deuce McAllister, that's Sean Vazan. I'm Juan Kincaid. Hard to lose when you're playing that kind of defense.
Hard to play almost 100 snaps. You know,
Yes.
when you're playing that kind of defense, it's always, you know, outstanding. But you hate to take that many snaps. And man, even though that game was Thursday, doesn't it seem like it's a long time?
Yes,
and
so
hopefully that bodes well for the Saints.
Yeah, you play those 100 snaps. Good thing you got that mini bye to kind of rest up, recoup, be refreshed, and hopefully ready to go here for the fourth quarter of the season.
All right, let's get you. We're ready to go with the headlines. Headline number 1, the South. It's just been that easy for the Black and Gold as they've only lost 1 game in the NFC South. They're 4-1. No other team in the division has a winning record in the division. We know that the Saints are good, and based on just how bad the rest of the NFC South is, weren't they supposed to win it by Thanksgiving?
Based off of the records, I think, yes, that would have been the answer. And so you look at, you know, how they were able to just take care of their own business and everything else took care of itself. And so this is step 1 for them. I think, obviously, you know, this team, and Drew talked about it, they have bigger fish to fry. And so this just qualifies them for the playoffs, which is great, but they have their eyes set on bigger goals.
I just like the way they took care of business, right? They are the best team in the NFC South. We all know that. They know that. And they took care of this by Thanksgiving, the earliest it's ever been done. The rest of the division, they're down. No fault of the Saints. Take advantage of it. Get things done. Get things squared away. Move on to bigger goals here in the fourth quarter of the season.
Well said, Sean. Headline number 2, staying home. Sunday's game against San Fran is the beginning of securing home field advantage. If you look around the NFC, the Niners, Seahawks, Packers, and Vikings are all right there, and all 4 play in freezing cold cities in January. If ever there was a year when the Saints need to be desperate to be home for the holidays and the playoffs, this is it.
I definitely agree with you, and I think, you know, how you can continue to build on being really the NFC representative of the 1 seed last year. You can kind of continue that trend and build on it, and, you know, it won't come down to what it came down last year if you are the 1 seed. I think this team takes care of business, but you talk about being in playoff mode. A lot of teams are or have been the last couple of weeks. Well, the Saints get their taste of going into playoff mode because it's for seeding.
And I like the fact they control it. Keep on winning, you get that 1 seed. I mean, it's just that simple. So, look, there is never a bad time for a home playoff game inside the Superdome. So it is always a good time to get home field advantage. Up until last year under Sean Payton, they had never lost a playoff game at home. We saw the game they lost. So staying at home is of utmost importance. Not impossible to win on the road, but it sure seems a whole lot easier to win at home.
Can you guys remember the last time where you had 5 other teams? Let's say 4, because Dallas really doesn't count. 4 of the teams that are around you about a game back, and they're all pretty much even in the standings. Not only in the standings, but in the eye test.
Well, the NFC is top heavy. I mean, that's what you have. The NFC has legitimate 5 teams that could beat each other week in and week out. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but that's why if you're the Saints, you prefer to have that home field advantage, have that home crowd in a familiar territory. And so I think this team is built to be able to go on the road in any of those cities and win. But when you don't have to deal with the weather, you know, of a Green Bay or something of that nature, then you'll definitely take not having to go there.
Yeah, look, Saints, Minnesota, San Francisco, Green Bay. I mean, these are very, very, very good football teams. I still think the Saints are the best team in the NFC, but still, you'd like to have that route through the Superdome to get to the Super Bowl, because those are some tough teams you're going to have to play in January.
You're right. Seattle's a little different now than they were when the Saints beat them way back when. All right, headline number 3, penalties aplenty. It is a problem. 9 for 121 yards against Atlanta. They're averaging 8 penalties per game, 68 penalized yards per game, and it's amazing that they're 10-2. Sean Payton often says if these mistakes happen against lesser opponents, we'd lose. Well, better opponents are coming up, and should we believe that the penalties are going to decrease going forward?
I'll take the 8 for 68. I mean, the problem becomes when it's 10, 11, 12 penalties and you're north of 100 yards. If they're going to be eight penalties for 60, 65 yards, I'll take that, but even you want to cut that down. At most, you want it to be 5, for 50 yards, something of that nature. But I agree with you. At some point, that is going to cost you a game. You are too good to continue to make some of those mistakes. So, just hone it in, tone it in, cut out some of the little stuff. I know it gets chippy out there. You want to retaliate. You want to do some things that you don't necessarily have to do at times, and you just have to eliminate it.
Since the bye week, they've averaged 10 penalties a game, over 100 yards since the bye week. That is not a winning. Thank God you were playing teams that you were better than, because that is not going to beat the San Francisco 49ers. That's not going to beat the Tennessee Titans in a couple weeks or the Indianapolis Colts. So they've got to get this thing under control. It is the one thing that can derail them. So just focus. It's more of just a focus issue, just execution, and don't get involved in the extracurricular stuff, because there's too many things that are more important than that instant right there on the field.
And you talk about the number of penalties, but sometimes, most times it's when the penalties are happening. But Deuce and Sean, you guys pointed this out a couple weeks ago, that Sean Payton is no longer criticizing the referees here. He recognizes it for what it is. My guys are just making mistakes here that they can't keep on making.
Well, some of them you can criticize the ref in certain situations, but I mean, the other ones, that falls that is square on the Saints. You cannot pass the ball to anybody else. That's on the players. And then if the players won't change it, then it falls to the coach. I mean, because at some point you're seeing the same thing happen over and over again, and you hadn't corrected it to that point. The next obvious thing is you have to pull playing time.
Okay, so I'm a question on that, because this is why I think I don't agree with you on pulling players, because trying to prove a point by pulling a starting player this late in the season, you're really doing more about hurting your team. So what's his other option there, Deuce?
You're hurting your team regardless. I mean, you're hurting your team with the penalty. And so, and a lot of it, Sean talked about, lack of focus. It's a lack of technique.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. If I know I can't right here block a guy in the back, I'm going to pull up. I'm not going to cost my team 15 to 20, possibly 30 yards. And so it may not be giving him as much playing time as he's been getting. But, it's not necessarily benching you, but in certain situations, you won't be involved. You won't be involved, and that's what he has to be able to do if they're going to continue to do some of the stuff that we're seeing.
All right, headline number 4, will the line be fine? That being the offensive line, the great unknown. Would Teron Armstead be ready to play on Sunday? The second great unknown, if he can't play, how will the Saints offensive line do against one of the NFL's best defenses, Sean?
The best defense in the NFL coming this weekend, so we shall find out. That defensive line is deep, and they are good. I mean, we saw what happened against the Ravens. They were able to contain Lamar Jackson somewhat in that really intricate, kind of old school, I don't know what kind of offense. It's just a very unique offense. And they'll play a Saints team that likes to pass the ball a little bit more, obviously. So we shall find out, because no one else before the season, this is the toughest test as far as the defensive line you will face all season in the 49ers.
We really won't know until if Teron is going to be able to go until later on in the week. I think another key player that maybe is out of this equation that we hadn't necessarily thought about, I think it's Zach Line. If Zach Line is able to go, then he helps you so much, not only as a blocker, but I think he helps a player like Latavius Murray. One way to slow down pass rushers is run the football. Well, the Saints, they've been able to run the football, but they've struggled a little bit, or they had to get creative in short yardage situations. If Zach Line is able to play, then he changes so much of what they want to do offensively.
Okay, headline number 5, the Saints defense carrying the load. This unit just keeps getting better and better as the season goes forward. Against the Falcons, Dennis Allen's group had 9 sacks, giving them 40 on the year. That's 4th best in the league. Also had a couple of interceptions. That makes 10 on the year. They had also recovered 8 fumbles this season. Is this the most complete defense the Saints have ever had under Sean Payton?
I'm going to say yes, because they have no weaknesses at all 3 levels of the defense. You talk about the defensive line, both on the outside and the inside. At linebacker, they were down to Craig Robertson, Stephon Anthony, and still performing well. Demario Davis, to me, is an all-pro caliber player. You look at the secondary, I know Marshawn was kind of recovering from an injury last week, but you talk about Marshawn Lattimore. Eli Apple had a couple pass interference calls, but I think he's a very good number 2 corner. I think Marcus Williams and Von Bell both played very well in the secondary. So I'm going to say, with depth and execution and timely plays, yes, this is the deepest defense Sean Payton has ever had.
Sean, I agree with you as well. I think, and when you start to look at this matchup, this game is going, and it's always funny when you talk about, well, how's the game going to be won? This game will be won in the trenches.
No doubt.
This game will be won in the trenches. If the Saints' offensive line versus San Francisco's defensive line, and obviously San Fran's offensive line versus the Saints' defensive line, who can stop one another, who can contain each other as far as run game is concerned. You can look for heavy bootleg action out of San Francisco. They like to stretch. The Saints will have to, right there, you'll have to run through some of those gaps and holes. There will be opportunities, but who can control the line of scrimmage will determine who wins this football game.
Can't wait till this game gets here. We're getting close to it, though. Coming up on the review, Sean Vazan takes us into the tape room to look at what's going on with Taysom Hill and this big touchdown run against the Falcons. And we'll get into the BGR mailbag. You've got questions. These guys have got all the answers for you coming up next. And be sure to subscribe to the Fox 8 Overtime podcast for more Saints analysis on demand. You can find those podcasts on fox8live.com, the Final Play app, and wherever you listen and download your podcasts. Stay with us.
You're watching the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.
All right, welcome back in. Time now for some film study, and for that, we bring it to Sean Vazan.
All right, it was a Taysom Hill kind of game on Thanksgiving night. A punt block, a touchdown catch, and a touchdown run. That run was some old-fashioned power football, and it's the subject of tonight's film study.
Vazan's Film Study, sponsored by Rejuvenate Medical.
The Saints are in their 13 personnel of 3 tight ends, Jared Cook, Josh Hill, and Jason Vanderlyn, 1 back, Alvin Kamara, and 1 wide receiver, Krishawn Hogan. Taysom Hill is at quarterback. Pre-snap, this appears to be a zone read play, but then Kamara goes in motion. This confuses the Falcons. Watch as both Deion Jones and DB Jamal Carter run with him. Carter realizes Kamara is not his guy, so he tries to come back to the box, but he's too late. When the ball is snapped, he's way out of position, and the Saints now have 9 blockers to 8 Falcons defenders. Nick Easton will pull from the left to the right. He and Vanderlyn block to Karis McKinley. But the key is Larry Warford, who seals defensive tackle Grady Jarrett, while Ryan Ramczyk and Hogan double-team number 54. This creates a massive hole for Hill to run through. Once he gets to the second level, there's only a deep safety who already took a false step and has no chance at catching Hill as he races untouched into the end zone.
QB power play. Great call, great execution, great night for Taysom Hill, and some old school football making a comeback. Smash mouth, there's kind of a lot of bodies, a lot of blockers, and just finding the gap and go. And Taysom Hill, when he gets to that second level, he really can go, and it's a good night for him.
Taysom was at like the 17, 18-yard lines. He's looking back.
He's looking back.
He's looking back like nobody's even close to him. It's just a phenomenal job, particularly on that right side of the offensive line. And you talked about Nick pulling and being able to kick out, and so just an outstanding play. And they tried to overload, and they got caught. Numbers were bad.
Before we get to the questions, I want to ask you about Krishawn Hogan. This is the guy that came in there a few weeks ago. Haven't mentioned him at all, really, but he's been fantastic for the team. Unknown stuff he's doing on just blocking.
Well, his ability to be able to, really block for this team, and at some point you know that they're going to go to him with some hard play action pass because you go and look at it, he hadn't been targeted. He comes in, he does an outstanding job of blocking. At some point you'll get a hard play action just because team knows this is a run heavy formation for him, and so he's been really, really good as a blocker for this team so far, and it's been impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he's joined the team mid-season and kind of found a little role for himself. Him and the tight end as well, Vanderlyn. I mean, he's kind of come in and made some nice blocks as well. So whatever you can do to contribute.
Get on there and stay on the team any way you can. All right, this question, our first one submitted in the Final Play app using the Final Word feature. Some announcers are asking if Kamara is the same after his injury. The opposing defense keys on him so much on first down, he's running against 8 or 9 in the box. Why not run more play action on first down until they back off? That from Harry over at Metairie.
Harry, they do use him as far as not only running play action with him. Every time he's in the game on first down, it's not always a run to him. You've seen them be able to use him as far as a swing pass. That's just like a toss sweep to AK. And I think, people are saying that he's not healthy. No, I think teams are are keying on him. Now you can ask whether he's 100%. I don't think so, just because nobody really is at this point in the season, but he's giving you as much as he's got. And, I think that you still saw some explosion that, maybe he didn't have a couple weeks ago. And look, he's going to be fine as a player. And, for him, he just has to continue to understand and know what the looks are that he's getting and go out there and make plays.
Just keep plugging away. Keep plugging away. Keep plugging away. I think the Kamara that, we're used to seeing is going to return. I don't think he's as bad as some fans are kind of making it out to be. Look what happened on that play we just showed on film study. He went out in motion. 2 guys were panicking, running with him. So he's still getting the attention. Look at the play it caused. So Taysom Hill touchdown. So I think Kamara is going to be fine. Is he 100%? Hard to really tell, especially at this point in the season, like you said, Deuce. But I think 41 is going to be okay.
Our next question comes from Frank down in Houma. He says, although the Saints won, special teams coverage on onside kicks was very embarrassing. I believe Sean Payton said that as well. Can this be corrected in the future?
Yes, it can be corrected in the future, and yes, it was very embarrassing. And I think, the players will tell you that as well. Each guy, each man, they have a job to do, and right there, each individual didn't do the job, whether you want to blame Alvin or whether you want to blame some of the guys up on that front line. You have to be accountable to each other, and, there's a job that you have to do, and you have to be willing and able to go out and do it. If not, you're not going to be on Hans' team.
Look, it'll get corrected, and frankly, it better get corrected because there's going to be some jobs on the line if that does not get corrected. That was the craziest sequence. 3 straight onside kicks. You see that exchange right there. Poor execution. Kind of a lackadaisical effort a little bit. Like, oh, wait, the ball's here. It was just 54 came right through. No one touched him. And then when the ball's kind of on the ground, it looked like no one wanted to grab it. So just bad. Hopefully, it's a good thing that's happened now. Because could you imagine something like this happening in a playoff game? I mean, so they're going to get this corrected. I can promise you they're going to practice this all week.
All right, coming up, we'll turn the page to the Saints' next opponent, the San Francisco 49ers, an NFC showdown that has a ton riding on the outcome.
You're watching the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.
All right, up next on the Saints schedule, a 10-2 Niners team coming inside the Dome. They're coming here off their 20-17 loss to Baltimore. The conditions were conducive to pretty offense, but defense ruled the day anyway, and the Niners have a stout one. They allow the least amount of yards in the league, and they have the second most sacks with 45 in the league. But the read option was a problem for them against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Sean Vazan, might this signal the time for Taysom to get more opportunities in how they play him?
Well, look, I could certainly see a scenario where Sean Payton watched that game and thought, hey, maybe they're a little vulnerable to that zone replay. We showed the QB power play earlier. Ravens run a lot of that in their offense as well. So I could certainly see this being a game where Taysom Hill gets a few more snaps, and he's coming off a game where he was kind of red hot against the Falcons. So absolutely, I could see this. They're not going to totally transform their offense the way the Ravens have, but I could see this being a game where Taysom gets a few more snaps.
Yeah, I definitely can see them maybe stealing a play or two. That the Ravens had a lot of success, and maybe not out of that same formation, but it's something similar that obviously you feel like Taysom can run. And look, they're different players. He and Lamar Jackson aren't the same as far as play caliber, but they do something similar as far as running the football, which we saw cause some problems for San Francisco.
As far as San Fran's offense, pretty solid as well. Jimmy Garoppolo, the quarterback, leads an offense that's ranked 7th in total offense in the league. They average 238 yards passing, 148 rushing, so they've got some balance, and they're pretty dangerous as well.
This offense starts with Kittle as far as the receiver. You have to be able to know where Samuels is. Debo Samuel as well right there. He's a running back playing receiver, but, Kittle is the one, and he's a tight end that makes that offensive go. You see Jurisic, they like to use him as far as a receiver as well. So it's some unconventional weapons that they have, tight end, fullback, that they like to throw the football to. But this is what you better be ready to stop right here. Outside zone and the bootleg play, because they run a ton of it. If you know anything about, their head coach, where he came from, the system that he likes, we are going to have to stop the outside zone, and you will have to stop the bootlegs.
No doubt. Took the words right out of my mouth. This is Shanahan all the way, which means you're going to get a lot of zone blocking, a lot of outside zone stretch plays, and a lot of bootleg off of that. So, 3 words. Stop the run. Because if you don't stop the run, you will have a long day. You must stop the run if you're the Saints.
I was going to go back to the Niner defense for a second because it would seem to me, as aggressive as they usually are on offense, and we talked about this earlier today, that this may be a chance for the Saints screen game to kind of wake up a little bit. It hasn't been as potent as it usually is with this team because screen play used to be their best play, but maybe this is an opportunity for them to take advantage of the Niners' aggressiveness.
Well, I think you can take their aggression and use it against them. I think, not only you talk about traditional running back screen, but even the tight end screen and maybe even some throwback type of plays to your wide receiver, giving them a little bit of taste of their own medicine, because what they're going to do is they allow that front seven to really get after you, and then they play coverage in the back, and so they're playing zone in the back, and they try to keep everything in front of them. You can hit them with some misdirection stuff. Here you see an over route. That's a one-high safety look as far as the safety in the middle of the field. But, I mean, you will have some opportunities to be able to push the ball down the field. The question is, can you block them up front?
Okay, down the stretch we go here on the Black and Gold Review Show, and the Saints have hit the home stretch of their schedule. The final quarter, we'll look ahead to their final 4 games coming up next.
You're watching the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.
All right, welcome back into the home stretch here on the Black and Gold Review Show. We're into the final quarter of the Saints football season. They always talk about 4 quarters of the season. The final 4 games: San Fran at home, Indy obviously at home, Tennessee on the road, Carolina on the road. Of these 4 games, do they need to win all 4 to wrap up home field advantage?
Right now, the way it's looking, yes. I mean, you don't have the luxury of being able to drop one. I mean, particularly this next one, you have to have it against San Francisco. And so you talk about the way that it's looking right now, you've got to have all 4 of them. Now, that may change as things continue to unfold. But for the Saints, they have to take care of their own business, and that starts with San Francisco.
That's the mentality I would take. We have to win out. We don't want to leave anything up to chance. So win out. Get that 1 seed.
Real quickly, which team gives you the slip up? Makes you worry about the slip up? Which one of those 4 games?
49ers. I mean, it's the best team on the schedule right now.
49ers, but if you're looking one outside of them, I think it would have to be
at Tennessee.
At Tennessee. Yeah. I mean, they're fighting for trying to keep that wild card race as well as try to catch Houston. 3
of those 4 teams fighting for playoff spots there. All right, for Deuce and Sean and everyone here at Fox 8, I'm Juan Kincaid. Thanks for watching. Our next newscast at 4:30 in the morning. Have a great night.
This has been the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.